have thought that given Australia faces a full-blown rental and housing crisis, that the government wouldn't be ramping up immigration to record highs. Well, think again. Over the past year, more than 500,000 migrants have arrived in Australia, which is, according to former RBA economist Paul Bloxham, adding to inflationary pressures and, by extension, adding to interest rate pressures. Joining me to discuss this is a woman who has been calling for a rethink of the Big Australia policy for decades now, One Nation leader and Senator Pauline Hanson. Pauline, welcome to the program. Why is this government so hooked on migration?
Because it props up the economy. That's what it's all about. And you've got the Business Council of Australia also calling for higher immigration. You've got the Harvey Normans calling for higher immigration because they're selling more product to the Australian people. Selling more product, more migrants coming in here. But as I've said for Rita, since 1996, when I spoke about immigration into the country, you've got to do it in a well-managed, balanced way so we have the infrastructure in place to deal with it. Governments and politicians have lost touch with grassroots Australians who are struggling to own their own home. You've got 100 that line up. If a rental accommodation comes up for rent, there's about 100 people lining up for it. You've got the prices of houses. Banks are making more money out of it because they're loaning more loans to, higher loans to people. You've got state governments, they're reaping all the benefits from the stamp duty. This is benefits to governments and to big business, but it's not helping the Australian people, their way of life, their standard of living, and governments keep doing it. And Barry Jones said this years ago, in the early 90s. He said, Labor brings in people into the country also purely for the vote. They know it will cause social cohesion, incohesion with the community. They don't care. They don't care, Rita. And people out there, they know. But you know what? They keep voting for the same old ones. They keep voting for Labor and they keep voting for Liberals who are the same with high immigration. Not as high as Labor. Labor are worse at this than the Libs. But with high immigration, even international students, over 100,000 more have come in the last 12 months than the previous 12 months, over 225,000. But also, Rita, they take up 70% of new dwellings. 70% of new dwellings goes to foreign students.
Well, we know about the pressure on infrastructure, whether we're talking about roads, public transport, hospital waiting lists, but it seems housing has become the really critical factor here because we're just not keeping up with the new dwellings needed to house all these people coming in. What's going to be the impact of that? Obviously, rents are going to go up and property prices are going to go up further. But is there any sort of solution? Does the Albanese government have a plan to build sufficiently or at least loosen regulations so developers are encouraged to build more?
Their plan was a $10 billion fund that they put up there and to spend interest from the fund into new housing of 30,000 houses over the next 5 years. We haven't got the tradies to build it. You can't get the supplies. You can't get what you need. That's a big problem as well. The thing is, for every 1,000 migrants you have, they require about 550 homes. Where are the homes for the Australians out there? That's why there's a lot of couch surfing. That's why a lot of people live in their caravans, their cars, in parks, in tents. And this is ridiculous. Albanese in Labor government are not concerned about the Australian people and how tough they are doing it. All is worried about bringing in more migrants, prop up the economy with the GDP. That's what it's about. And I think it's disgusting of any Prime Minister of this country to disregard the Australian people and how tough they are doing it purely because he wants to play on the world stage.
Now, we did have the Essential poll out today and it did show, it is a left-leaning poll, but it did show Labor's primary vote down, Greens down fairly dramatically, Coalition up a little bit, and One Nation was up. Are you sensing a shift in the mood of the nation after the referendum?
Most definitely. People have actually woken up to the referendum, what has actually happened. So they're not blinded now, and they're questioning, where has the money gone? Where are the results? There are no results. And they feel they have been deceived by the Prime Minister and the Labor Party. They want answers to the questions. Like I said, the cost of living is the main issue Australians are talking about, and they shake their heads when they see this government spent $400 million on this referendum that went nowhere, and now he's turning around and saying, well, we may legislate for rural and regional areas the same policy that was just thrown out on its ear by the people of Australia. People want truth and honesty from their politicians. They want true representation. Why it's with One Nation is because they're starting to look at One Nation as a party that really cares about this country and the people first and foremost before international interest and multinationals. You know, the Liberal Party need to get their act together because they've been taken over by the moderates, and they're more leaning to the left to pick up those moderate votes, where we are the true conservative. You know, common sense policies, and people are starting to see that. But people must, people have to take the blame themselves. When they go to vote, a lot of them don't understand the preference system. They are of the opinion they must vote either Liberal or Labor. And you don't have to. Vote for the minor independent parties and vote for One Nation. That's where you'll get true representation.
Now, Pauline, before you go, I've only got 20 seconds, but tell me about your Christmas gin and what it supports.
It supports cartoons. Rita, you see them as a hoot, and thank you for your support. And so do a lot of Australians. It informs Australians about politics, these characters, who they are, what they stand for, these politicians, the gutless wonders in our parliament. But we're informing the people, we're keeping them up to date, and a lot more people have become more interested in politics because of our cartoons. And good, that's great.
Absolutely.
If we're doing that, that's what it's all about. So the buying the gin goes to the cartoons.
Yep, I play those cartoons every Friday night because it is the best satirical cartoon series I think this country's ever produced. It's funny, it's worth it. Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your company tonight. Don't